Welcome, BBCers, to episode number 69 of the Broken by Concept podcast. We've got a new look here. We've got a new camera angle. Curtis and I are like 50% of the screen, but before we were like literally 50-50 and we're just in people's faces. We've got a fancy new... It's pretty scuffed right now.
It looks really weird right now, but we need to explain why.
So it's like a vinyl stickers, right?
So these are actual stickers.
Yeah.
This is not a poster. So these are all individual stickers. Each letter here is a sticker. But we don't have the tools yet to
we want to make sure
them.
it's like, level and stuff. So we're going to take our time.
Well,
so
if we stuck them right now, they'd be scuffed into it, right?
Maybe that could be our look. You know what I mean, Curtis? We could just have it like really scuffed.
But they can't see the stickers, can they?
No, I don't think they can see it. It's sold up by our soul.
So what was his name again?
So Bridger. Shout out to Bridger for that. Awesome stuff. Bridger is his name. And his agent's Kick Jacks. So he's literally just sending it to us for free.
It's so sick. Some MLA stickers as well and Soul 2 stickers.
Yeah, I should have had them here so we can show.
Maybe we can grab them in the break.
Yeah, we'll grab them in the break. So awesome stuff there. So guys, our podcast is becoming more professional.
Yeah, dude, we're getting merch. We're getting stuff done, man.
We had like the era of like, we still have that whole, cutting off thing that people always say like we should get a new camera and stuff.
Yeah, but it's not
I think it's not that bad. I think it's fine as well. And yeah, a lot of people listen
character,
on. Yeah, that's right. It adds character, and a lot of people listen on Spotify and Apple Podcasts anyway. So
it's fine.
I know you're not going to be able to see our pretty faces all the time, but there you go.
And reminder,
Clips channel, yeah.
Clips channel still exists. Shout out Francine for helping us on that one.
Broken by Concept Clips.
And we're back. We had a week off.
We had a week off.
Everyone was so sad. They were saying they'll blame me. You ruined my Monday morning or Monday, whatever, saying there was no clips. No BBC. We ruined their schedules.
We did.
We're to blame.
Because we had a consistent...
Mondays are done.
And we also had our consistent schedule every single Monday.
Was this the first one we missed?
We have missed one episode. Remember when we recorded it and then it wasn't working?
Oh yeah. I was so angry.
That was in the earlier days. People won't really remember those, I hope.
Yeah.
So we're back
though. That's the most important
ready
thing.
to go. And because people were saying, why didn't you just do it online? We don't feel
it's terrible.
It's just not the same. Like we'll do it online for guests.
The vibe's just different. And I feel like the quality of the conversation is worse and the energy's lower and everything's just
the couch is just the casting couch is the way, especially with this thing now. Like we got our look, you know what I mean?
Yep.
All right. So this episode, we're going to be talking about focus, attention, ADHD.
Yep.
How this potentially ties to solo queue. So we had everyone loved the episode that we did on addiction. I guess this is sort of like a follow-on.
It kind of ties into it a little bit, doesn't it?
Because this is also from our reference points.
But before we dive into this, I got to actually explain some one of my solo queue experiences. Okay.
So I love story time with Curtis.
This is story time.
Yeah. Everyone sit down, grab your popcorn around the fire,
your marshmallows. But this is it, dude.
Yeah.
I got beaten down
over the last week.
I don't know how long it's been. It might even be longer. It feels like I've been in like an extended boxing fight where I've just been beaten left, right, and center. I just destroyed. And what I love about this experience is that sometimes it feels as though, or at least for me, I feel as though I can kind of like sometimes like my ego allows me to like skip on the process. Sometimes it's like, in the back of my mind, you're Coach Curtis, all this stuff. You don't
1 KLP mid laner.
Yeah, like
best mid on nose.
It like just builds up to the point where you feel as though you're different. Like the Tyler one, you just built different. And like in a way, this experience was so humbling to me. And I gotta call myself out here and really expose myself and share this story because this is very important to like kind of explain.
Would you say a mindset is that you deserve to win?
Well, let's break it down step by step, okay? Where it all started. I think it was around a week and a half ago or something like that. I was sitting around nearly 1,100 over. I was nearly top 10. I was killing it. Felt every game was easy. Didn't feel
Your 3 blocks were going good.
3 blocks, everything rock and rolling. And I felt like, everything was going great. And then I had a moment where I feel like I think it was in the same period of time I was learning Syndra and trying to re-implement TF into my pool. And then I had a series or a string of they genuinely unlucky games.
They were
right?
like the 30% losses.
Yeah, the 30, and they happen, right? And I think I got like 4 or 5 or nearly even 6 in a row. Whereas like I got autofilled as well, one of those games. It was just really, really unlucky games. And I played well. And the first one of those 2 blocks, it didn't really bother me. But after that, because I lost those 6, I think it was like a string of 6 losses in a row. The next block after, my mindset was like, you got to make up for that. Like it was like, you got to win now to make up for those really unlucky games, because now you know it's in your control. You're gonna refresh, boom, get back into it. But I think what happened is that I got a lot of secondary role, a lot of support games, and it started beating me down because I'm trying to learn TF, I'm trying to learn Syndra. So then I would obviously play Syndra, that one game that was in my control, and obviously I lose that one because I'm learning Syndra. In combination with getting all the support games, just the
It's
tension.
like the perfect cocktail.
It was the perfect mixture.
Try hard Syndra game. Think you play pretty well, but you're still going to lose because you're learning Syndra.
Yep.
Then you play like a TF game, and then
Still learning that as well, kind of.
Okay.
Like reintroducing it into my pool.
Got it.
Then I get a support game.
Then you get a support game.
And then I had a 0.
And that's a 3 block.
And then I had a 3-0. I had a 3 support block as well. That was another one to top it up. I had 3 support games in a row. Boom, boom, boom. And all this combined with the expectation of my level of play, my ego coming into play, it created this. It was like a nuclear bomb, dude. Like it really, like being dead serious, I lost full control over my mental state. I lost full control, like hands off the wheel. I don't know where this is going to take me. I couldn't stop playing.
You were an addict.
I turned into an addict. And I remember it started going to 4 blocks. And then it went to a 5 block. And I streamed the 5 block. And I remember I was playing different champ every game. I had learning objectives, but because I was getting secondary role and then mid, and then it was a really shitty draft, and then a game I should have dodged with Tereth playing 80 carry. It was all this stuff that added up. Like the one game I played well was a 30% loss. It just exploded me to the point where I was so pissed at myself, and I lost now I'm dated 800 LP. I lost 300 LP in like a very short period of time. And I was so angry that I got straight off to the computer after, and I just smashed out this like crazy workout because I got a barbell at home now. And I was like dripping with sweat. I was just so pissed. And I had all this adrenaline, and I was like, fuck me, what just happened? Like it was like a cathartic experience. I was just able to reflect, like, what the hell just happened over the past 2 weeks? Like what was my mindset like? And so I started to reflect and realize, okay, this is where it all started. This is where it all started to go downhill. You lost track of your process here. You got sloppy on the 3 blocks. You got sloppy on the learning objectives. You weren't focusing on the improvement. You were now trying to make up for LP, and then the ego crept in, and then it just all these things created this concoction. So I tried to take a break over the weekend. I thought on the Saturday I was going to be okay to play. I played 2 games. One of them just reminded me why I just shouldn't play on the weekend.
I think that was a support game, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a support game. And I just instantly, I took a break, didn't play on Sunday at all. And I haven't played yet. It's Monday.
Today we're going to see.
We'll see how I feel.
Come back.
But I'm being very cautious. Like I'm easing back into it a little bit. And I know that now. I know what I need to focus on in terms of improvement. But what I've come to the conclusion with myself is that I have to take my support games very seriously. I don't really care if I lose on support, but I have to take it seriously, because what I've noticed is when I get my secondary role, my mindset shifts to just like mediocrity. And when I go into that mediocrity mindset, I can't bring it back
to the rest of the block.
I can't, especially if I start the block on support. Even if I play well on support, but it was just lucky, but like, just I win that lucky game. It's just the shift, the way I view it, like if I would use an analogy, say at the start of my block, my intensity is from 0 to 100. Like I can go to 100 as max capacity. After that first support game, my max pool of intensity that I can reach is 90. And then the second one, it's 80. So what I need to do is I need to really come into those support games to try and learn, and even potentially even set a support learning objective just so I can maintain my intensity, because the drop is just too much. So I'm calling myself out, and that was an incredibly brutal experience that I don't think I'm going to forget. It's probably the most brutal solo queue experience I've had since, remember, the start of last year. where I was like kind of stuck at 300 LP.
Yeah, it was
or
around
something.
mid. It was like July and stuff when we
Right.
moved to the new place. Remember?
And then that's when I asked your help. I said, I'm stuck. That was probably the last. It was over around a year ago.
Since you had like a huge, because I guess you've been pretty consistent the whole year, just doing your thing, doing your
the 3 blocks,
process.
everything, and the process. But
you sort of felt like you were stuck around 800 LP, but you were sort of just like at your level of play.
yeah, I was at my level of play.
It wasn't like a crisis.
No.
Yeah.
So last year, it's been over a year since I've had a proper explosion. It didn't feel good. So in a way, it was a humbling experience. It's like, well, I'm not immune to this.
So what are the lessons, Curtis? If we were to make right now a YouTube video, 5 lessons from my mental breakdown in solo queue.
Well, I think that's one of them. Was I said the taking support seriously. I think that's a very important principle that I'm going to take forward. That kind of crept up on me. I didn't really know it existed. I needed to reflect in order to come to that learning. I would say the second one, you just got to have learning objectives. You just got to.
Something you're focused on.
I got to a point where when I was reaching around 1100 LP, that I always felt as though, now I'm just refining small details, but it's actually not the case. Like, I play way more consistently when I have genuinely solid areas that I want to refine. Even if it's not the number one thing, you got to have something that is like a reference point in your reviews to look for. That's another thing for myself, because that's what prevents one of the biggest things that prevents big loss streaks. We say it sounds super simple, but you must bring it back to something you're trying to improve on, regardless of the result. That is what's going to allow you.
That's the key word, regardless of the result.
Regardless of the result. So, for example,
it also makes you like, let's say if you like stuff up so I'm working on Java and EQs, right? And like, let's say if I mess up a couple of Java and EQs and that loses me the game, it's like, well, that's fine. You know what I mean? Because it's like, well, I understand why I lost the game. Because the key thing of not tilting is understanding why you're losing these games.
And how you contributed to that loss in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
But it's hard to do without knowing where to direct your attention. So like for me, my support tracking got really sloppy. My jungle tracking got really sloppy. And these are areas that I'm trying to now hone back in on. So that's another one. And I'll say another one as well is just really reflecting and keeping my ego in check. And something that I've noticed in myself is that I guess from coaching a lot of high ELA, EU and stuff, and NA as well, I guess, I just kind of like look at these play and then I forget that it's a whole different ball game between
looking at
knowing and executing.
Yeah, 100%, dude.
Like you just take it for granted that like execution is really.
That's what I want to get into this episode. That's what we're going to talk about, the attention, ADHD and stuff. Because we did some research over the week. Do you want to just jump into it now?
Yeah, let's jump into it. Yeah.
So we thought we would do some research about this. And you might be thinking in the watching this like, oh, I don't have ADHD. I'll click out. The interesting thing about ADHD is more these days, the gap is closing between someone with like a normal brain and a brain with ADHD. So ADHD stands for Attention Deficit
Hyperactivity
Disorder.
Yep.
And I mean, the most stigma you might think of like some like, it's really tied to like kids and stuff.
You would think they're hyperactive.
They can't sit in their chair and like you always know that kid in school, right?
100%.
And the interesting thing is that the gap's closing. And this is why it affects us. And as the research went by, I realized like, holy shit, I'm having these tendencies.
You look at the symptoms and you're like, oh, okay, I'm like that.
You literally said, you're doing some research like, Nathan, do you have ADHD? You're like, this is just all you. So I was like, holy shit, yeah, it's scary. And it's really important to, I think, to understand this. So just the way attention and how focus works.
And even if you don't have it, there's things in here or things that, I was reading, I'm doing the research, like, wow, this actually makes a lot of sense in terms of what we teach and resetting your mental and all these things and staying focused. So like it makes sense. So I think, yeah, you're spot on, Nathan, regardless if you have ADHD or not. And maybe what I hope, Nathan, out of this episode is that I'm assuming that there are people out there listening to this that have ADHD without even knowing. It is very common, even in adults now, that, ADHD is actually quite, I don't know the actual statistic of it, but it's quite common to the point where there's a lot of people have it and they don't even know. It just goes undiagnosed. Shout out to a channel. There's a channel called I believe it's like, that one I sent you is like, I have ADHD.
Yeah, it's like what is that? If you just type in what is ADHD, the first
It's
video,
like
she has
a
like
girl.
800,000 subscribers.
She's awesome.
Yeah.
So if you're on the edge of it, or it's something you thought about, we'll probably put a link to a few channels in the description.
Our references for this episode.
Yeah. So ADHD is commonly, I guess, noticed or referenced to these three things: inattention, hyperactivity, and impulsivity. So by inattention, we mean difficulty focusing, or like silly mistakes and things like that. Impulsivity, fidgeting, restlessness, and interrupting things. And in order to actually get diagnosed with ADHD, there's actually 6 symptoms that you need, like 6 boxes that you need to tick. But primarily, there's 3 types of ADHD. There is primarily hyperactive.
Which is the most common?
No, I think the combination is the most common.
Okay.
Or there's a combination of inattentive and hyperactive. That's like the most common. And then all of these are on a severity scale. Like you can be an inattentive type of ADHD, but to a very low degree, like a 0 to 100 type thing.
Other things as well that I had noted is the really bad with delayed gratification.
Very bad with delayed gratification.
And like long-term goals. Like let's say you wake up and you're like, oh, like I need to like get a job or like apply for a job. Like your brain, and versus like video games, it's very difficult having ADHD to be like, I'm going to apply for this job versus just playing the video game, because they just gives you the instant dopamine. It's very difficult to control.
Across the board, if you have ADHD, you're generally dopamine deprived. The way you got to think of it is that people with ADHD, they love dopamine. They are, they're drawn to dopamine-inducing activities or substances. Hence why a lot of people with ADHD are also more inclined to have addictive tendencies towards like drugs, like cocaine, amphetamines, cigarettes, things like that as well. Video games as well, which is very important. I think you raise a good point, Nathan. Someone that I know in the MLA that does have ADHD struggles with sticking to long-term goals and sticking to a champ pool, because they're just now.
That's right. What's the next thing?
What's the next thing now? Here, exciting. What's the next exciting thing? Which is super interesting. Now, impulsivity and hyperactivity can actually lead to a lot of positives, though. There are some positives with people with an ADHD brain: creativity, curiosity, risk-taking, thinking outside the box. Now, one of the things we're going to talk a lot about today in reference to ADHD is emotional dysregulation. They have very poor emotional regulation. And emotional regulation is, I think, one of the crux or the key concepts I'm going to refer back to time and time and time again.
Love emotions.
So let's actually start by talking about Dr. K's video. So you stumbled across this one. Do you want to give the audience a little bit of an update? So this video was basically talking about...
So someone wrote in literally about a league question, which was really interesting. It's like, I have ADHD, and when I lose games, my day is like literally ruined. And like, it's not until I wake up the next day that my... I feel like, back to normal and stuff. So it's like literally affects him, like losing games of League of Legends.
And so basically Dr. K explained the connection, or how ADHD interacts with League of Legends.
And he basically was saying that what the guy was saying was very normal behavior for someone who has ADHD.
Right. And so let's go through this. So Dr. K actually thinks, and this is what you said, that the gap between healthy society and ADHD people is small.
Is closing.
People as a whole are becoming more emotionally dysregulated, less attentive, have a whole range of motivation issues, which are all things, or I guess, what are they called? These are areas in which people with ADHD struggle with. They do have high levels of emotional dysregulation. They're not very attentive, and they struggle with motivation issues. But this is across the board in society as well now. So you may think, well, this sounds like me. Holy moly. And this is because of the way society is functioning now, right? With dopamine being so accessible everywhere. And we spoke about this at length on another episode, didn't we? Where everything's on demand, essentially. And games, Q now, YouTube, porn, social media, now. Now, one of the key things with ADHD is that stopping these impulses is much, much harder with ADHD. And so we get, you're obviously going to get all these impulses. We all get the impulses, regardless if you have ADHD or not. But your ability to control the impulses.
So, okay, I'm not going to do this. This is a bad idea. I should probably do this task, or not play more than 3 games in the 3 block.
Right. And so this has got to do with that emotional dysregulation. Now, the way they talk about it is, this is the way they package it up very neatly. ADHD, people with ADHD have problems with something called executive function. And what executive function is, it's self-directed actions needed to choose goals and to create and enact sustained actions towards those goals. So it's like, essentially, if you think about executive function, that's literally the process of picking some long-term goal, whether it be a career or whatever it might be, some long-term thing you want to aim for. So not only just picking it, but then also sticking to these actions in order to foresee or reach that goal. Which leads to a whole host of, which is combined with a whole host of attentional problems, and these people with ADHD are obviously more inclined to be drawn in by instant gratification, which is one of the big reasons why they can't stick to long-term goals, whether it be a champ pool, trying to achieve champion mastery, or stick to a process or a schedule or something like that. It's very difficult.
There was the Huberman podcast, that one of the references we got for this, his video on ADHD. He says that the interesting thing though is that if someone with ADHD is very, very interested into a topic, that hyperactivity can be very beneficial. So they have higher levels of focus for shorter periods of time, or if they're really interested in.
Well, even for sustained, they can actually have sustained periods of hyper focus if they're really interested in a topic, which actually does make sense. If you actually think back to, I'm gonna say, have you worked with anyone that has ADHD? Out of interest, that
Yeah,
of?
I think I think Matt did. Yeah, he was
Right.
He was the guy that was able to climb to master tier in a year.
Right.
Yeah. He played Carthus. He just literally play cards all the time.
Yeah. So when the thing is very clear, and they enjoy that specific activity, and they're very interested and challenged by that activity, they can go to an insane degree. They can learn so much and focus way more than the average person. But getting to that point of finding what you're interested in, and that whole process is obviously very difficult, because especially with something like League as well, is that sometimes, and we know this, getting to the point of where it is interesting comes with a lot of painful experiences. Like if you can get to that 80th game on that champion, you're going to have a lot of fun, but getting to that point is the hard bit. Getting people, and in my experience, just with people working with people with ADHD, is that they can't get the games. They actually just don't play enough of League to get to that level of champ mastery, which is interesting. And people with ADHD they generally have a tendency to aim for low-hanging fruit, in the sense that they'll do all the things that are very easy, like now that I can do right now, but anything that requires an extended period of time in work, they'll usually give up, or they'll just bypass it and ignore it and choose to get all the things that are very easily achievable right now, which is interesting. So this is where this all gets very interesting. So funnily enough, people with ADHD, their brains are more sensitive to negative emotions, right? And so this is where losing a game of League of Legends can be extremely painful for people with ADHD.
Even someone in the chat saying you suck at the game.
Anything like that, boom, they can get set off.
Yeah.
Impulsive, same thing. So the way I view it is that their pain of losing a game is extremely amplified. But the interesting thing is that they're more unaware of their emotions. So this is when I heard this, I was just like, what the fuck?
It makes you have empathy for people in solo queue, because it's like, this person could have ADHD. It's very easy for us to say, again, I don't think that we have ADHD, even though you think I have a lot of tendencies, Curtis. I'm very good at controlling my emotions, right?
You are,
there's no way. But imagine someone who just doesn't have the control. It's like let's say someone with Tourette's as well. like they cannot control it. It's literally impossible. So it's like it gave me a lot more empathy of people in
Agreed.
solo queue. It was like, oh, okay,
That actually makes a lot of sense.
You know, I can't just tell someone like just
because we get frustrated sometimes.
I
Right?
get very frustrated with my
emotions,
clients,
right?
Yeah.
But we don't. This is why this is so important to empathize. It's like, well, there's like something up here going on hormone wise, that they can't. Not that they can't, but they have a much, much harder time controlling these emotions.
But this is a disorder, right?
It's a disorder, yeah. And so what happened? They actually did a study. They had a neurotypical person, and then someone with ADHD, and that with the normal person, the more powerful the emotion, the more aware they are of it, which makes sense, right? You would think that the more you feel something, an emotion, you're going to be more aware of that emotion.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I'm very sad, or I'm very happy now.
Yeah, and you would understand how that's probably impacting your behavior. But conversely, someone with ADHD, the more powerful the emotion, the more powerful they feel about something, the more the ADHD brain is blinded to it.
They're unaware
They're unaware of how the emotion is actually impacting their behavior. So you can see how dangerous this could be with League of Legends, in the sense that you get this hugely painful experience with losing a game, tilting, rage typing, or even just straight up addiction, whatever it might be, frustration. But because they're unaware of the emotion at play, they think everything's normal, and they're just going with it.
Well, this is my
Q 25 games in a row.
This is my experience with Matt. This is exactly spot on. He's been banned 15 times or something like that. Ridiculous amount of times. Literally cannot control someone typing in chat, anything like that. You know, just pure impulse.
One thing that sets them off instantly.
Yeah.
And it's quite sad. It's scary.
And like Matt would know the effects. Well,
in hindsight, probably.
In hindsight, it has to be hindsight. But in the moment, I could never explain to him in the game why typing like this is hurting your chances. Like that took me a lot to really. I don't think I ever got it across.
It's pure emotions, because the emotions amplify it. We already know how hard it is to control your behavior when you're influenced by. I mean, just think about my story early on. I couldn't control my behavior based off my emotional state at that time. Let alone, I don't have ADHD. I mean, I don't think I have ADHD.
I don't think you do.
I don't think I do. But that just goes to show how powerful that would be, or hard it would be for someone to control their behavior.
Absolutely.
And so think about it, in a game of League, you won't be aware of your anger until it just overflows like a volcano, until it gets to a point where it's so ridiculous. You're just telling someone to kill themselves in the chat or some crazy thing. You're like, okay, look, I've probably gone too far now. So TLDR, their sensitivity to emotion is greater, but their ability to restrain emotions is weaker because they're more impulsive, but they're also blind to the emotion as it increases and gets more powerful. That's the most toxic combination of traits you could possibly have, in reference to League especially. Hence why people, I'm assuming, video games, or specifically League of Legends with ADHD, is probably not a good mixture.
Well, I mean, that's the long term, which they struggle with. ADHD people struggle with the long term. That's the tool that I use to control my emotions, but they simply don't have that. So it's very, very, very difficult for someone with ADHD to be controlling their emotions. Because that's it. I just think, well, if I type like this here, this is just not instructive for me winning the game, and this is me. I'm unfocused for the game, and this could hurt this one game, which is my block, and that.
It's all long term thinking.
Yeah,
that's why you're so
tool.
good. Yeah, that's your tool. That's your little toolkit. Yeah, spot on. And now the scary thing is that people with ADHD are probably more likely to play video games due to the immediate gratification, right? And how easy it is to get dopamine, but have a low frustration tolerance, but then blinded by the anger. And then this just perpetuates, and they can't restrain themselves and adjust their behavior, which leads to the compounding effect, which is just a miserable experience with the game, a poor relationship with the game, tilt queuing, playing 25 games, or just playing no games. I mean, it's just a very, very scary cycle. Now let's get into. Sorry, my notes are a little bit messed up here. Here. So now that we've identified how ADHD is likely to interact with League, let's talk a little bit about how we can approach. Dr. K talked about this at length with his video. How we can strive to work with ADHD to limit its negative effects. So if you have ADHD, you must strive for something called emotional regulation. So let's first of all define what emotional regulation is, okay? Emotional regulation refers to the process by which individuals influence which emotions they have, when they have them, and how they experience and express their feelings. Emotional regulation can be automatic or it can be controlled, conscious or unconscious, and may have effects at one or more points in the emotion producing process. So essentially, you are, or it starts with obviously noticing your emotions. Once you've noticed your emotions, you can then start to think about how these emotions are impacting your behavior. So it involves three components. Emotional regulation involves three components. One, initiating actions triggered by emotions. Two, inhibiting actions triggered by emotions. And three, modulating responses triggered by emotions. And so in order to start with emotional regulation, it's all you got to pause, or what emotional regulation aims to do is pause between the feeling and then the reaction to that feeling. So you get an emotion, I feel it build up, I'm aware of it, boom, I pause for a second to notice this emotion, then I can choose how to act. That's the goal. That's the goal. Now, this is obviously a skill that you can develop whether or not you have ADHD, and it's probably going to be essentially your toolkit. This is, in a way, kind of what you're doing in it.
That's exactly what I do. I will realize that, okay, this game's starting to get a bit frustrating. Pause, okay. This just might be a 30% loss. That's what would go through my head. And then I'm just going to try my best for the rest of the game.
And I think that this whole thing of emotional regulation is something that it's actually the term that I've been missing in my vocabulary within my clients. Certain people have naturally a propensity to have high emotional regulation. That's sometimes what we would call discipline. And I actually feel as though just through my upbringing and through my experiences,
you're disciplined. You're very disciplined.
I feel as though I have incredibly high levels of emotional regulation.
Not normal.
Not normal at all, based off my upbringing. I'm very fortunate to have that. Other people, not so much. And this can be based off biology, just your genetics, as well as your upbringing. But we can increase our level of emotional regulation through these things. And we're going to go through tips for increasing emotional regulation and some worksheets that I've actually got, which were awesome.
Oh my God, Curtis, we're very prepared here.
So just to know, before we go into the tips for emotional regulation, something to note is that I feel like the term modulation, and Andrew Huberman talks about this in his podcast with ADHD, modulation is an important concept to understand, because if we go back to those three ways we can I guess, change our response to our emotions is through modulating. Now, modulating basically means you're reducing the intensity of, or the length of time it's apparent. So let's say you feel a certain emotion. When you're modulating it, you're not just removing it. You're actually just lowering its intensity, its severity of that emotion.
Yeah.
And that's what I do most of the time. I wouldn't say I inhibit.
Yeah, you don't just remove it.
You don't just remove an emotion. You're modulating the emotion.
It's like a little dial.
Yeah, I'm dialing it down. Like, it's there. Like, I get frustrated, but I don't let it. It's not to the nth degree. I'm toning it down to the minimum. And that's very important. I feel as though, modulating as a concept, I think that's a much healthier way to view emotional regulation, because it's not realistic to go from 0 to 100, just remove it because I have the best willpower in the world. That just doesn't work.
I'm frustrated.
We're not robots.
This person. That's it. I'm happy they're best friends with him now.
Exactly. That is just not. And I feel as though, honestly, emotions are important for behavior change. So I think it's important that they exist. But just, we got to be aware of the combination and the severity of the emotions. Anyway. First tip for emotional regulation is just straight up self-awareness. So notice what we are feeling and name it. Fascinating. I did an MLA 2-week challenge where we did the exercise was after every 3 block, you had to take 5 minutes or 10 minutes to reflect, kind of like a journal entry, reflect on your block. And one of the most powerful, and it actually got a lot of results for people, because
Really?
I think
Okay.
this is what it did.
Yeah.
It allowed them to reflect on their block and notice, and I gave them some questions to prompt them to push them in the right direction. But what it allowed them to do was to notice where in the block they were feeling negative emotions. So they were able to get specific. So it was at this moment here, whether it's in the champ select or after that person said this, or after this event happened in the game, that's where I got this spike of X emotion. And then you can kind of give that a name. You could like categorize it. It's like, oh, interesting. I don't deal well with, whether it be as simple as being the facilitator in a game, or having to be the carry in a game.
Not having perfect CS.
Yeah, or not getting a blue buff, or whatever it might be. You can get specific, and then you can name it. So the more specific you can get in terms of where that emotion is coming from, the more effective your ability to I guess regulate your emotions will be. So that this is kind of ties into the second one, which is just straight up mindfulness, which is just meditation, right? And Andrew Huberman also talks about that in his podcast, which is just breathing techniques and meditative experiences can be a really great way of building awareness of your emotions. So those are the first two ones here. And look, that's easier said than done, right? Being aware of your emotions requires you to take your face away from the screen and to, in a way, it sounds weird to do nothing. We've said this a few times, but if you feel as though you have a problem with emotional regulation, you're going to have to take yourself away from these activities that are taking your attention and just do nothing. No phone, no video games, no YouTube, no screens. Just you alone with your thoughts is the starting point that will allow you to buy time to now notice your emotions. And the scary thing is, we spoke about this as well on the podcast, is that if you don't take time to think and reflect, just like it happened to me over that 2-week period, and I didn't take time to reflect on my solo queue experience, you can largely be completely unaware of what's happening. And that feeling that lies with you, so that feeling of frustration within that 2-week period became the norm. That became my I guess, idling. That's like my idle speed. Like that feeling of frustration and tilt was my baseline. And the longer you are unaware of that idle, like baseline emotion, that will just become your norm. And it will take a lot of time to undo that. So that's why it's important on the regular, ideally, to have some time during the week, whether it's even in the shower. I think showering is where a lot of people are able to mental refresh if you don't play music and shit. That's why as well I've stopped listening to music in the shower as much as possible to try and clear my mind. Any thoughts on that? Like, have you got an experience with that?
Yeah, I mean, going to the norm, like, it's not a, like, I created the norm for not typing solo queue many years ago, right? So I literally had one of my clients who recently joined. He was just watching me play, and some guy was typing me, like very specific. It's like, oh, it's Nathan Mott diff again. Like, this guy sucked, as usual. Yeah. And he's like, he just couldn't believe that I didn't react to it at all. And I wasn't even thinking, it's like, oh, I'm going to show everyone how I'm not going to react to this. That's just my norm. And it was so interesting how it's like, that's just absolutely normal that I've set there. It's like, I just don't react because it's not useful, right? To people, specifically flaming me. And his norm is to react to anything. But once you start once you start not reacting to it once, you start to like build the norm. Like I had like those impulses and stuff, like when my other gaming experience, like my World of Warcraft days. And then I sort of created the norm there of like typing and reacting emotionally in highly competitive environments is not beneficial to win in game or gain any or gaining rating. And I there was many times where I failed, but I kept on trying to work at it. And then I was able to make that my norm. And then now it's just so like easy. It just doesn't even compute in my brain at all to type to someone.
It doesn't take any of your...
It takes no willpower, no energy, no nothing. It's just like, that's my norm. And creating that norm requires you to really like pull yourself back. And it's hard. And again, for ADHD people, it's like almost maybe impossible. But I think that creating that norm is so powerful because it requires zero willpower.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
I mean, you had to develop this.
Yeah, it wasn't easy for me at all.
Why did you were super toxic.
I was really toxic, yeah.
When we were playing together in season 4, 5, 3.
Well,
how did you do that?
Well,
I think maybe
I had a unique toolkit though.
You had to become responsible.
Yeah,
I think that's what it was.
Well, I was in a way forced to do it.
You were forced to,
But a part of me, like, because it was that kind of transition phase when I moved into a coaching position. It forced me to be. When I was toxic, I was very unaware of my actions. Like I was in a way just autopiloting through life. Like I was, I had no.
Yeah. It wasn't just legal; it was real life as well.
It was real life as well.
Yeah.
I was toxic in real life. I had a miserable experience. Like my life was at that time. I mean, there was no purpose. I didn't feel like, that was one of the worst times of my life before like 2016, 2015 and stuff. And when I was toxic in game, that's how I felt all the time towards everyone in real life as well. Like I was just a toxic, depressed kid. So I feel as though when I started to learn, like I just gained perspective and go through that whole period of reading and learning from other people's experiences and gain perspective. In a way, I was kind of forced to obviously not be toxic because it's embarrassing, and I was like, "This is just embarrassing."
Well, there'll be very clear consequences.
Clear consequences. Obviously, being a head coach of the Direwolves at that time, but
I mean, you literally get banned by Riot Games, right? That's what it was. Like it was.
But that wasn't really my biggest factor. I genuinely, I think, in a weird way, my experience with the whole Jono, that whole mental experience, and like learning like about how
other high performing individuals, how they behave and act.
Exactly. There's all these other high performing individuals, and I just when I started to realize how much knowledge there was out there, and how much I didn't know, it humbled myself. I just basically humbled myself. I'm like, who are you to talk, Curtis, when you don't know anything? Yeah, I don't know jack shit. So in a way, it tamed down my ego massively.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, what do you, and I'm going to get no value in it. And combined with a few other quotes, like hate never comes from above. And like, I'm just on a different wavelength in a way. And this does sound egotistical, but it's just true. It's like we're not operating on the same playing field. I'm not playing League as an escape or because I have nothing else to do like this guy. Like I'm getting way more value out of my time playing the game than you. And it's from a sense of empathy. It's like I could genuinely feel bad for a lot of these guys that would even abuse me because I just don't want to give them the time of day. It's like I know they're miserable right now and they need help. And I know how it feels because I've been there. So it's like I was able to kind of empathize with people that are toxic in a way. And then now I just mute. And I feel bad sometimes for muting because like I know that they're probably in a lot of pain. These people that are toxic. So it's a combination of a lot of things, I would say. Yours was very logical, clear cut. Like I see the benefits of not being toxic. Mine was not. I
see, and there are the benefits. Like I literally was gaining the benefits.
And you got the benefits, and you built a habit. Mine wasn't that clear cut. Mine was like a culmination of many, many things coming together over time, I would say. But now it's just like I got a reputation to uphold. I can't afford to be.
That's right.
Toxic or anything like. It's just embarrassing as well. It's like get your shit together. Why am I being toxic as a 25-year-old and like 16-year-old
in a video game?
It's like, what the hell, get your shit together. So
Type in anonymously on the internet.
It's so ridiculous. I would never do that now.
Yeah.
It's like literally ridiculous. That's the word I would describe. Yeah. So it's evolved. The reason I haven't typed it is evolved over time in a way.
Got it.
But yeah, it's an interesting one. But you're spot on. I mean, the more you do something, the harder it becomes to not do it. Is essentially the
That's
rule
right.
There. Yeah. Now, the third one was tying back to the tips for emotional regulation, something called cognitive reappraisal. This is something that is commonly seen in like CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. But it's like a technique of, there's multiple ways of doing it, thought replacement or situational role reversals, where you think of like a stressful situation and then you look at it from like an entirely different perspective. So you could, this is kind of like visualization in a way. So you put yourself back into a time where you were like really stressed out or experiencing negative emotions. And then instead of looking at it through your lens, you look at it through the other's lens. So now view it like this. You're getting flamed by someone in the game, or a common one we both get frustrated by is someone flames you even though they're in the wrong. That's a common one that a lot of people struggle with. Basher in my Discord said that's the one thing that just sets him off. If he gets flamed, even though it's their fault, he can't let it go.
Yeah.
So we put that in perspective, right? Bloody hell, my notepad's full.
You're a mess, Curtis. You're absolutely mess today.
The people on the
your Solic is falling apart. Your notepad's falling apart.
I ripped next? It. Anyway, So think to that situation. Okay, if you literally get specific, okay, the moment where this Amumu did X and blame me for this, well, you can empathize and go back in time and visualize what situation are they in to say such a thing. Maybe they could be going through something at the time. They might be addicted. That could be their 7th game of the block. They could be really feeling shit about, there's so many ways to really empathize, or maybe they just genuinely don't understand that concept. They don't take the game as seriously. There's so many ways to like flip the narrative. And so that's what they call that's one of the ways they do this whole technique called cognitive reappraisal. It's in a way tying back to the episode we did with the soccer visualization, where the goalkeeper would overcome mental blocks by visualizing him beating that striker. It's the same technique in a way. You're going back in time and reversing the roles, which is interesting. I haven't personally done that all that often though, but maybe if that interests you, it could be something you can look into. Another one is just sheer adaptability. And we talk about this, adapting to chaos, just being adaptable as a human, not getting comfortable when something is being done the same way every single time. You got to be quite careful, right? So you got to be comfortable with things being different and adapting to chaos. Do you have any tips for that? Because I think you're very good at being adaptable. You're a very adaptable person, I feel as though. You're very good at adapting when things change and new variables come in. You don't get stuck in your ways, I don't think. I think you're very good at changing. Or at least in solo queue. Or at least your mindset towards adapting to chaos is good. How would you suggest someone becomes more adaptable?
Adapting to chaos in solo
Like
queue.
how do you get better at adapting to chaos? It's like
I don't think I am good at it.
You don't think you are?
Because if I have a game plan and it doesn't go well, I can lose focus. I mean, I guess I adapt, but maybe that's a different thing.
But I feel as though you at least attempt to adapt, right?
Yeah,
you understand intuitively the importance of adapting to chaos.
Yeah, I do. Yeah. And
like you understand that.
Yeah, adapt. Yeah, I do understand.
Like I don't feel as though you ever get tilted because you don't adapt to chaos, right?
Yeah, no, it's just like I'm adapting, but I'm just fucking up the play.
You're fucking up the adapting.
Right.
Like you're adapting, but you might not do it well, but you attempt to adapt.
Okay, so...
Like how do you teach adaptation?
Okay, so adaptation, this is the way I view it. It's just about... This is league specifically. It's going to be about options. So someone who's really poor at adapting, they think that there's no actual adaptation to be made. There's just one thing. It's like a perfect example is like in the big game, like ARAMs, right? People are grouped up. They feel like the only thing to do there is to fight. But I'm thinking of, okay, I can do that. Sometimes that's the option, right? But I also understand I can create pressure on the other side of the map. I can drag people around. I can get more resources for myself. Be a bit of like a split pusher in just a brief moment. That's like an option. And then I'm able to adapt because I have those options. Let's think about it in terms of real life. Let's say if you had many different skill sets, right? Let's say I'm a graphic designer, but I also can... I'm like a doctor. This is a weird mix. A doctor and a graphic designer, right? Okay, if I lose that job...
Do your own logos.
Yeah. If I lose my job as a doctor, I can be a graphic designer. You can adapt, right?
Yeah.
Because you have options. Because you have different skill sets, right?
Yeah, totally. I think that's a funny analogy.
So that's really
well, what they say is through objective evaluation. I'm assuming what they mean by that is like, if you can just ration it out and be like, well, it's better for me to be adaptable in this situation because I can see more options. It's like just, if you can be logical about it.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah, you gotta be logical. That's right.
Be logical. It's like, well, I can have this very like
if I do this
approach.
again, if I ARAM, it's like, okay, well, I'm coin flipping the game.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like, well, I should figure out another way so I don't get in this situation.
Or like, or at a common one I see is that they have this narrative where, oh my god, my entire team's getting caught.
Yeah,
there's nothing they can do about it. It's like they're getting caught, and that's it. I just lose. But it's like, well,
that's what they'll be focused on. It's like, oh, I'm going to lose the game because he's getting caught. Versus, I think he's getting caught. Oh, what could I do on the other side of the map?
Or what can I? Or is there a way I could have foreseen the fact that they're going to get caught?
That's right as well, and that's
that's like adaptation. You got to adapt to the tendencies in that game, and adapt to the game pace, and adapt to the meta and the elo that you're in, or whatever. So, yeah, I think you're right. I think it does come just being logical about it, essentially, right? Another one, and the last two ones are pretty self-explanatory: self-compassion and emotional support. So I guess being compassionate to yourself, just allowing yourself to be okay with the fact that you're going to experience emotions and lose your control at times. Like you're not robots. Like you're going to feel emotions, and these emotions are going to impact your behavior at some point in time. Allowing for that, being okay with that rather than beating yourself up, as well as emotional support, just having others to support you in your journey. You know, I don't think it's possible as well. You can really be objective about your emotions and how they're impacting your behavior. Sometimes it requires, that's why our job as therapists in our communities.
That's right.
It's like we're in a way allowing them to see how their emotions are impacting their behavior, and sometimes getting that outside perspective to see what's happening and just explain why it's happening can just be a very
absolutely, that's very important
experience.
Yeah.
And that's what our coaching is great for as well. Not just the in-game stuff, but also the emotional support in a way. I've actually got two worksheets here. That these were, because I did a lot of research on emotional regulation, and these are worksheets that can help you be more aware of your emotions and regulate your emotions. So one of these is very similar to the player. You remember player versus victim? You remember that? Remember the book that talks about the importance of being a player, not a victim?
Yeah.
It's very similar to that. So this one, what led to the situation? So I'm assuming you think back to that situation that led to those negative emotions. What led to that situation? How did you interpret the situation? How intense were your emotions, say on a scale of 0 to 100? Did your emotion influence others' actions? If yes, how so? That's a great question.
That's a great question, yeah.
We say that all the time.
Yep.
Did the emotion influence your actions? If yes, how so? Did your emotion influence your judgment? These are great questions. These force you to be introspective, doesn't it?
Yep.
And this process of seeing how you contributed to a situation can allow you to it's kind of like that whole adaptability, being objective about how your emotions are impacting your behavior. The other one, these are some great questions here. Describe a stressful situation you encountered. How did the situation occur and how did it affect you?
I like that one.
That's a great one. Did you or your behavior lead to the situation stated above? These are awesome. How did others around you contribute to the situation? What control did you have on yourself during that situation? What was your reaction to the situation? Do you think your behavior impacted your emotions? Because sometimes your behavior can impact your emotions, not the other way around.
That's right.
Did your reaction affect others around you? And how would you react to a similar stressful circumstance in the future? That's great. I love that last question. Because it's like, what would you change? And what would it look like if you were to do that again?
Love it. I'll have it in the edit those worksheets up for the YouTube, but we'll also link this.
I can just link the site. I'll try and find the site that I got these from because it's at the bottom of this this website. They're great.
So maybe an exercise can be do one of these for one of your solo queue games.
Yeah. I mean, that would be amazing if you can feel like this just once, just as an experience.
Well, let's say a game that you felt like,
one situation in a game that really
you were so frustrated.
So hopefully it's helped people. You know, and look, I'm assuming we don't have ADHD. These are still great exercises and straight things, and I think we've kind of come to this conclusion by ourselves, haven't we? Like we've always said the importance of like taking time to think and self-awareness and in a way 3 blocks and the review process and that whole thing allows you or forces you to do that in a way, doesn't it?
So let me quickly change the battery and then we'll continue. I want to talk about attentional blinks.
Okay. All right, so we're back in business here. So one thing I wanted to note before we let Nathan take the wheel here, in the Andrew Huberman podcast about ADHD, he talks about dopamine and how dopamine works or how dopamine's related to people with ADHD. Now, look, I don't want to get too specific here, but the way the ADHD brain works is that it's very dopamine deprived, and that it searches for dopamine wherever it can get it. Hence the impulsivity and things like that, right? Because it just wants that short-term boost of dopamine. Now, this is actually why a lot of the medication and a lot of the other activities that people with ADHD tend to get more inclined towards, this is talking video games, cocaine, amphetamines, cigarettes, things like that, gambling. These give you immediate boosts in dopamine. Now, and same as sugar as well. I'm pretty sure it gives a similar response. Now, in saying that, what dopamine does, it's actually it's a neurotransmitter modulator. So it modulates the amount of focus. It modulates your focus. So
again, is that the dial again?
Yeah, the dial. And so what it can allow you to think of it as like a cone. When you have low dopamine, you are, in a way, your attention is everywhere. Because you're searching and you're searching for things. Your focus is very scattered. Because you're not really honing in on something. But when you've got high amounts of dopamine, your focus then becomes very narrow, but very intense in one area. So people with ADHD, when they, obviously get this medication, I'm assuming it increases their dopamine, which allows them to direct their attention to a specific area rather than being very wide scoped. I think that's a very healthy way of looking at it. And in a way, for anyone that is dopamine deprived, that's kind of, you'll explain it, but you got to be okay with that. Like, you got to be okay with being expanded and then choose where to direct your attention rather than just going everywhere here, a little bit here, a little bit here. That's why it ties back to that low hanging fruit thing as well. Just thought that would kind of add that in. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the way I perceive my research. I could be wrong. I'm not an ADHD. I'm not a doctor or anything.
We're amateurs here, Curtis. This is our first
my buddy League of Legends coach is talking about
dipping our toe in the ADHD world.
This is uncharted territory.
So it's great concept again from the Andrew Huberman podcast.
Great podcast.
Yeah, it's great stuff.
I think it's actually one of the greatest.
Science.
It's one of the most educative pieces of content on the internet.
Yeah.
It's so jam-packed.
Well, he's a Stanford professor.
Yeah.
So he does this, for a living.
Yeah, it's amazing.
All right, attentional blinks. This is fascinating. So think of attentional blinks as the same as you blink. So when you blink, just with your eyes, there's a split second where you don't see, right? Obviously, if you're more tired, like your blinks might be longer, and it's like at the wheel. It's like they tell you to take a rest if you're driving long periods of time, because then you start dozing off and stuff like that, right? The exact same things happens with our intention. There's like this. So let's say like that popular game, Where's Waldo?
Yep.
And you're looking for Waldo. Once you find, like, that's your objective, that's what you're focused on. Once you find Waldo, there is a split second where even if there is a Waldo next to him, you'll never notice it for a split second. It's like, and that's called an intentional blink. So it's like your brain's like, oh, I found it, and there's a pause, and then it will go back to now we got to find the next thing for attention.
Why is that?
Why is that? I don't know. We just do it. It's just
the way the brain works.
So this happens in just normal people, but someone with ADHD, they have attentional blinks more often.
Right. Okay.
Right. So I was trying to think about this in my league. Like, I think that this is a huge area of my gameplay, and I'm trying to think of attentional because there's so many situations, right, where I know the perfect thing to do in this situation, and I'm so focused on it. Right. I do it. And then, like, I'll actually do some autopilot thing after let's say it's a dive, right? I'm like looking at the wave, we execute a dive. And then I'm like, I'll do like an autopilot thing, which is usually to reset. That's like my tendency. Like, I'm sometimes an addict to resetting. But sometimes I'll be like halfway through my reset, I'm like, oh shit, like their top side camp, but bot side camps are up, like I can go and take those. And there's like this delay. And there's also sometimes as well where I am, I start like a path, and I was like, fuck, like I should have like invaded him there. Like I fucked up. I should have started. And then I'm sort of like committed to it. And like I have to do it. But I know that I had that option if I was thinking about that before I did my objective, my focus, right? And when he was described, I was like, holy shit, this is exactly what's going on. Attentional blinks. And I was trying to think, okay, well, how do you make sure you don't, you know what to do next? You know, we say what's next. And I was trying to think, like, for coaching clients and stuff, this is very difficult to do, because, like, let's say a most common example. I had a coaching session today where someone showed on the map that, like, they did a gank, they did a play, they were super focused on it, and then suddenly their map awareness went 0, right? LeBlanc moved, and then he walked into his jungle, and then he died, right? And that's so interesting to me, because, like, that's a really common thing. And anyone in the room, he could say, like, that's a dumb mistake, that's super obvious. But why does that happen in our games? Because we focus on something, we focus on a play, and then we try and do something else, and we're like,
it's an attentional
like,
blink.
our map awareness is gone that moment.
Yeah, interesting.
Right?
Yeah, it's actually an attentional blink.
So
yeah.
you're blinking, but your attention blinks.
Your attention blinks. It just
once
stops.
you've achieved that objective that you're focused on.
So there's no such thing as a smooth transition between, like, attention here to attention there.
Yeah.
There's always, like, a moment.
There's there's a brief pause
where you're not thinking in a way at all.
And that pause can be, like, longer, but usually it's like a blink. It's very, very short, right?
Interesting.
So the way that I need to think about this is, like, and this is the thing, thinking, okay, I should actually have a plan. Like, this is what I do, and then I know what to do next. Already going into that play. Because then I'm not actually focusing really on that. I'm like, I'm just going to execute this, but, like, my overall objective is more so to win the game.
You're, like, priming yourself to already know where to direct your attention.
After.
So rather than, like, trying to go from 0 to 100, you already kind of know vaguely where you are.
Sort of, but what I'm trying to say is more so is, like, I'm trying to actually win the game. So you know how, like, let's say you make a play, and, you know, like, your coaching clients are, like, really focused, like, lane phase and stuff, but they don't really know what to do after, because their mindset's not their focus is actually not on how to win the game. It's actually,
I call it killing the nexus.
Right? It's actually how to have, like, a perfect lane phase.
Right.
So, like, once they achieve that perfect lane phase, they'll, like, attentional blink, and they'll, like, screw up a play after that or something like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, we call that having a reference point in a way. You could have a reference point for your decisions. Yeah, that can help with attentional blinks, I would say.
And the more you play League, the better you will get at, I mean, you will know what to do in that situation. So you actually, you know, when you're learning something new, you're really focused on it, and you actually can't focus on other things, right? Because, like, you're just really trying to do this, and that's why we talk about champ mastery. But if you're, like, really good at get that muscle memory, it's like, I execute that dive and then I do this every time. Then it's like, well, you're not actually ever there's no attentional blinks at all, is there, happening?
So you're saying it's a combination of, like, muscle memory or something where you don't need to really direct that much attention there anyway, so it's not.
So you won't blink.
Because in reference to that Where's Waldo example, you're having to put a lot of your attention on it.
Well, fine,
so
Where's
that's
Waldo?
why it's like, you're like, oh, I've got it, and then you have now think of something else.
That's right.
If you're not really having to put that much focus on it, you're not really putting that much attention there. Therefore, you're not going to have a blink. Is that what you're saying?
That's right. Yeah.
So there's the sheer act of the execution of the play from an attention standpoint, as well as having a reference point so you know where to direct your attention next. Yeah. So there's two ways. It's like the transition as well as the play itself.
That's right.
Yeah, I like that. It's really good.
So I thought that was fascinating. And I was thinking that's why so many basic mistakes happen. For lower elo players.
Right.
And even for myself as well.
Just because they have a lot of attentional blinks, because they're having to put so much
on, like, micro things.
Small things that we would say are basic, like CSing or
like you can CS and look at the map.
Yeah,
But someone can only CS.
Well, that's just tying back to the mental stack thing.
Yeah.
So the more something takes up your mental stack, the more you're going to have attentional blinks.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. And those attentional blinks can cause you to just die or...
That's right.
Or any disastrous thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of the big reasons why League's so brutal. Because you're having to focus on so many things. You can have so many attentional blinks.
And that's going to you saying you know where your ego came from about sitting back watching.
Because I don't have to put my attention there.
That's
I've got
right.
free mental stack.
Yeah.
It's just so easy.
That's right. You're completely free. You're not focusing about CS and where the jungle is and stuff. I mean, you can see that stuff, but you're just looking at the minimap the whole time.
Exactly.
Right?
Looking at the minimap so time.
It's like the armchair analyst, right?
Yeah, armchair analyst. I like it.
So I think that was fascinating. And I think I suffer from that greatly. Because if I have a game plan that I am looking to execute on and I don't execute on it, my game just goes absolute chaos real quick. Like sometimes I feel that someone without a game plan is better than me because they're always just like free flow adapting. You know?
They're present in the moment.
Yeah, or they're not really actually really focused on anything. They're just they're just mechanically just playing the game.
Yeah, right.
But like my
Because
games,
your mental stack's overwhelmed in a way.
my games explode real quick if my game plan doesn't go well. But the advantage of if me executing a game, I know exactly what to do. I know that's going to win me the game. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but that's where I feel as though they get capped.
Yeah, they will get capped.
Like over the long run, if
Yeah.
you were able to execute and continue that trajectory, you would be a way better player.
That's correct. Yeah. Well, hopefully.
If you can execute.
If I can execute. And that's what I always think as well. It's like sometimes players are better than me because they don't have game plans.
They got more free, you got more space in their mental stack to focus on the here and now and execute that better. And sometimes that skirmish can just win you a game.
That's right. And then I lose that skirmish.
And then that's just the game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Funnily enough, talking about that, one thing that we didn't touch on at all was working memory. So there's the...
Oh, yes. That's really good as well.
So important.
Yeah.
So
I forgot what it was about. Can you refresh my mind?
So TLDR, people with ADHD have a way worse working memory.
Of getting that information. Oh, that's the other point as well.
That's so important,
Yeah.
which ties into this exactly because... so the analogy he uses that, say you try to remember 6 numbers, 2, 4, 3, 5, 6, 7. The average person will be able to say that a few times and remember it in like a minute. Someone with ADHD really struggles with keeping that in their working memory. Now, working memory plays a huge role in League of Legends
because you got to grab information short term.
Now it's always here. More,
Yeah.
you just need to keep it there. It's like, oh, that person has no flash. He's running low on resources. He just used that cooldown before. It's like you got to track all this stuff, especially in mid lane. If you're a laner, especially, working memory is massive. Probably not as much as a jungler. I would say not as much because your working memory isn't as overwhelmed because you're not directly fighting someone all the time. I'm not saying it's not using it, but not as much.
Yeah.
But that is huge, and that makes so much sense with people with ADHD why they would struggle with League in general. It's just a hard bloody game for them. But this is where it gets complicated because if they are really obsessed with it and really enjoy it,
then they're able to hyper focus.
They can
more.
hyper focus, so they can compensate for their lack of working memory or their disadvantage or their worse off working memory. So that's also something that you need to be very on top of.
Well, this again, like learning the stuff about this, it actually makes sense. I mean, it just helps me understand like I need to coach different people different ways, and like some people are going to struggle with. It's like it might just because it's easy for
nothing's simple.
Me, it might not be harder for someone else.
Well, I had a guy straight up. He emailed me this morning. Opened this email this morning. He said, "Curtis, he gave me a bit of that background. He says he has a few disabilities. I think he is something like autism or something like that, and ADHD, whatever it was. He had a combination of disabilities, and he felt as though he's got coaching from multiple people, but he's got no results. And I feel terrible for these guys that genuinely loved it. They love the game. They're really, really interested. And he's got coaching from Nice and all these people. He gets no results because these people don't understand at all the psychological part of the game. They just look at the gameplay for what the gameplay is. Yeah. They completely ignore the stage 3
They have all the
issues.
game knowledge.
They might even, let's just give them the benefit of the doubt and say it's the game knowledge, which I even call bullshit on that. But let's just say they do for the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
They completely ignore the stage 3 element of the problem. They go straight to stage 2, stage 1. You always got to start with stage 3 first. You can't just go into this client coaching session with this dude that has ADHD and then flame him for making this mistake, like Nice does a lot of time. Flame him for making these mistakes and shit. And he said, "Look, I got beaten down by these coaches. That He said I work well with positive reinforcement and things like that. This guy's obviously getting overwhelmed. His poor dude's probably mental stack is overwhelmed. His working memory struggling. He's probably incredibly sensitive to these emotional inducing events. Poor dude's just getting destroyed." And this is the thing. It's like, you got to be aware. You're spot on. Every client is different. And you cannot...
remember, it's hard for those people that have the coaches that have like that just one-off session because you don't have time to know the person. I think that's the difference between our programs is because we get to know our clients over a long term.
Yeah, but that's why it's a scam.
Okay, well, there you go.
I'm going to call it out. It's a scam.
Okay.
Anyone's buying one-off coaching.
1 hour coaching sessions.
It's a scam.
I mean, it's not tailored to you. I mean,
I
think there is some value, but
it's very. I mean, unless you have a very specific problem, and that's what I realized. I thought that was the way to coach, right? I myself went down that rabbit hole, but I realized it's so hard to get results because I'm looking at one game here, sometimes 2. It's not enough.
Yeah, and I don't know the person.
I don't know the person. I don't know the
actually what the
backstory.
crux of it is,
No.
what the issues are,
It's
their
so
mindset
hard.
to the game, the relationship with the game. I mean, at the end of the day, you're never going to know from a 1 hour coaching session if someone actually has a good relationship with the game. They could just put on a facade, right?
No. And most of the time, I've noticed in my sessions, I just send them off to read articles in my MLA.
Yeah.
It's like
You have all the resources.
yeah, I have all
there.
the resources here, so I can
Yeah.
just send them off. Read this, read this, read this.
That's
Okay,
right.
you're this problem. Watch this video. Like I can like just it's just there.
Yeah.
Now I can like if I didn't have that though, it's like it's overwhelming. I
Yeah.
can send them to watch this YouTube video, read this article, and then watch this other coaching session, and then this. It's like boom, 4 resources. You got like a great, potential solution. And if it's not, we can go. That's the other thing as well. A lot of the time, what I love about our communities is that sometimes I even say, look, this, I don't even know what your issue is. It could be this, but it could be that. Let's try this first.
Yeah, let's try this first.
And then come back
Have a
again in
crack.
3 weeks
Yeah.
and then we can have a crack again.
Yeah.
That's what I love about it as well. It's like, well, I'm not going to pretend that I know all of your problems to the point.
No.
I'm just going to have a hypothesis. It's like a doctor. I can have give you a
Rough
rough
diagnosis.
diagnosis, but sometimes a GP is going to send you to a specialist here.
Specialist, that's
That's
right.
like the way I
Yeah.
view it.
Yeah.
I just found that interesting. Got a bit sidetracked there. But anyway,
Okay. So that's my spiel about that.
it's great.
The other thing is we're talking about the smartphone usages and how just because you don't have ADHD now, you could be getting the tendencies. There was a study they did in 2014, 7,000 people. This was in adolescents, so like boys and girls, and the study was about mobile phone, or like smartphone, and focus using inattention, like difficulty in like attending, and they found that if kids spend more than 60 minutes a day on their phones, then their focus would start to get really like shorter in things. So that's crazy. That's for kids, 60 minutes. And that's how much like, it actually affects your brain throughout the whole day, whether you can focus on things for long periods of time or not.
Having kids nowadays is so scary, dude.
Because you say that every podcast.
It's scary. I mean, you're just getting attacked from every angle. Like, if I have a kid, it's just to think how you would navigate them through this world.
Well, Curtis, that's a new YouTube channel for you to start.
It's like my new YouTube channel.
Parenting with Coach Curtis. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
That's just showing
It's
the
great.
danger.
What a great study, yeah.
That's just the danger. And again, it's so easy. You're queuing up for league. You got Discord messages. You're on Facebook. You're on YouTube. Your brain's fucked
That's
from the
why
get go
I think that
before the game.
This is why I keep telling you, you don't heed my advice.
No,
at all.
No.
But our brains, Nathan, by Saturday are fucked.
Yeah.
I'm telling you right now.
Yeah.
Like our brains,
Because we get pulled
fried.
everywhere. We've got this client problem.
Our
this client
days,
problem.
Nathan, you don't realize this is the norm. Let's give a bit of insight to the people watching this. What our days look like. Okay.
Sure, Curtis.
So the thing about this, I've done the MLA now for around 6-ish months. I've got 1,300 coaching sessions.
Yeah.
So I'm not to say our job is hard by any means. I'm just saying just the way our brain is going to be affected by our work. So you're thinking so wake up 5 a.m. for me anyway, my schedule. Boom. The first thing I do, I'm literally getting out of bed, going basically straight to my computer. I get a coffee, go to the bathroom, straight on the computer on Discord instantly.
You got all the messages?
I mean, I don't even start the message. I just
Okay.
kind of say morning, like check the few urgent things.
Yeah.
Coaching 5:30. Boom. 5:30, 7:30, hardcore coaching, using every part of my brain. Like coaching is really intensive. It's like using every part of your brain.
Well, because the thing about what we need to do when we see a VOD as well is we need to work it out, the game, like create a framework because we don't play the game.
Yeah, we're not in that game.
So we have to play the game in our heads.
So what I'm doing, and this is why I even feel scared to coach another coach, because obviously I want to bring another coach into the MLA, but it's even thinking about that task is so overwhelming because you're not going to be a good coach unless you've done thousands of reviews. Looking at myself 1,000 reviews ago, I was trash comparatively to what I am now. Because what you got to do, what we do as a coach is you're listening to the tone they say something, the language they use, as well as why they sent this VOD. Plus, I always ask, and then I even ask background information leading up to, are you playing in 3 blocks?
Yeah.
Is this your main champion? What are you currently for? I'm processing heaps of information, plus how the coaching session goes and what I see, based off their responses to things that I say, to come up with a semblance of a framework moving forward, right? you got to do this now. I do that 4 times usually in a coaching session. I do around 4 sessions. I would say 2 hours.
Yep.
And then it's basically straight away breakfast, and then come back, and then coffee, and then a reply to DMs and all this stuff, and thinking about the game, answering questions, looking at clips. I get sent VODs privately that I give advice for. That's for like another sometimes 1-2 hours, and then by then it can be like 10, 11. I might do a short workout. A little bit of a break. Then I start thinking about making content, writing an article. Boom, straight into another 2-hour coaching session, 12 till 2. And then this is not even talking about uploading and taking notes off the sessions that I've done and uploading them onto the website. By the time all this stuff is done, it's already like 4 p.m. And I've been using my brain to the extreme by 5 a.m. basically. And then I play solo queue for 3 games, because I got to stay updated with the game, which is also hard, and probably answering questions while I'm solo queuing stream and reviewing my own games. And then it's already dinner time, and then I'm off to bed. So you're on. I don't get time to chill at night at all. I don't watch shit at night. I don't do anything. I just do, and then I cook dinner. I cook dinner every night. So boom, 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 boom. From when I wake up, from when I go to sleep, and then I read for the book club and everything, I'm basically on into like we're using our brain from when you wake up to when you go to sleep. And I'm sure there's plenty of other people out there that do the same. I'm just explaining the situation. Is that by Saturday, when Saturday rolls around, my brain is like all I need. And I thought I could get away with this. And I keep telling you, you must take a break away from the game at least one of those days, whether it's Saturday, whether it's Sunday.
One day I will.
You need one day. You need one day. For me, I didn't play League at all on Sunday. You got to have it. Because your brain, and what I feel on Monday, I feel so fresh on Monday morning after that Sunday. And the difference is night and day. Because what I'm doing is I'm removing all the dopamine. I'm removing all the attention everywhere. It's scattered everywhere. And now it's just on Sunday, play a bit of jazz music, read for 3 hours, go for a walk, make some beautiful food, just switch off. Monday, you're on hyper intensity. You got to take a break. And I'm sure there's so many other people out there with many professions that have the same thing, but it just goes to show me, imagine that. Imagine if you don't even take a break from the game. You're on 7 days a week, dude, pretty much on. Your brain's how's your brain work? Like, how's it?
It doesn't. I just do everything more intensity.
It just doesn't work, dude.
We'll get there eventually. This is why we're
Guys, you got to help
searching.
Nathan out.
We're searching. We're doing research. We're making errors.
But this episode terrifies me. What's happening to our brains throughout the week? Discord and DMs and emails. It's intense. Poor brains. Overworked comparatively to what they were hundreds of years ago.
So what's the difference between what you do and what deep work is? Do you do deep work?
I'll say our coaching sessions are deep work, aren't they?
Yeah, okay.
And I do my articles are deep work when I spend that hour trying to write an article.
Yeah.
Or do a YouTube video, so that's deep work as well. Yeah. Your schedule's basically identical, right?
That's right.
So it's the same thing. So,
all right,
that's it.
Jump into the mailbag.
Oh, we should. These are the stickers.
Yeah.
Also, I've got MLA stickers.
Can we see him there?
Wow, the lighting's been cooked here. Wait, let me put my mic down.
The lens. Yeah, no, it's not going to work, Curtis. Good work, Curtis. You can't, because the lights are not there, Curtis. It's not going to work. Anyways, away we go. Welcome back for Nathan's Mailbag. Jingle, jingle, jingle song. All right, everyone ready for some Nathan's Mailbag? First question here is from James. Tyler's email is called Girlfriend. Curtis always says how much he has one of those, doesn't he?
I don't talk about it that much.
Yeah, because you've been called out, so now you put yourself on check. Every time you were about to say it, now you restrain yourself, because again, going back into emotional regulation, you regulate your impulse to talk about your girlfriend. What do you reckon?
Man.
Hey, I've been a fan of your podcast since day one. Keep up the great stuff. And because of this podcast, I think I've improved a lot, not only in league, but also as a person in real life. I recently turned 19 years of age and I've been playing League since season 6. However, I've never had a balanced relationship with the game until the past year or so. I recently spilled a glass of water on my computer, causing it to be out for 32 hours or so, and it made me realize how empty my life was without my computer. During those 32 hours of desperately trying to dry my PC, made me reflect a lot on other parts of my life, such as family, fitness, and relationships. I decided to take 3 weeks off League to try and improve other parts of my life, and so far my family part is going great. Fitness is going amazing as well. However, I'm stuck when it comes to dating and getting a girlfriend. I have literally zero experience when it comes to dating, but I would like to get a girlfriend eventually. Is it possible to have a girlfriend whilst being a gamer? How do you get a girlfriend? I laugh at this question, Jay. I gotta laugh because you're 19 years old, all right? So, you might be looking at other people 19, they're on Instagram and they're like, they're like in a relationship and it looks all exciting, but it's really not, okay? And you're not missing out on anything.
No.
Okay, and just relax. If family fitness is going well, I mean, you said you not much going for you. Those are great things.
I mean, if
What do
I
you
were
reckon,
if I was to go back
give
in
your
time,
relationship. You had girlfriends all the time.
Yeah, I
16,
did. I've had
17,
a lot.
18, 19. You know.
I would say if I could go back in time, I mean, look, I'm not going to say avoid relationships. And you got to make mistakes. Like
That's right. You learned
like
a
the
lot.
way I view it is
Yeah.
like you got to fail at promos.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're going to fail at promos.
Yeah.
So you got to do that at some point, but like let it just happen naturally. And like if you could, ideally, if you could avoid them as much as you can as possible, like that'd be the better thing to do.
I think it's fine. If you just
Like,
don't really focus on it,
yeah.
just let it naturally till 25, 26, you're fine, man. Even if you have zero dating
100%.
experience.
Yeah,
like,
100%.
come on.
Like your goal should be to
Be the best version of yourself.
the best version of yourself, and then if someone wants to come along for the ride, then great. If not, then it's not a big deal. Like like at the end of the day, good people attract good people, and so if you become the best version, or you strive to be the best version of yourself, you work on yourself physically, mentally, professionally, in every area of family life and everything. Who isn't going to want to be part of your life when you happen to meet people at some stage? Why wouldn't they want to be with you? Who wouldn't want to be with you? That's like the mindset you got to be in. It's kind of like trying to go pro in League. It's like you get high ranked and then people just come to you.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. Great analogy.
It's the same thing. It's like orgs will want to pick you up because you're a beast. It's the same thing in relationships. So be you. I love that. It's like that Bruce Lee video. There's like a really awesome video on YouTube called Be You by Bruce Lee. It's like a motivational thing. I always watch it.
I always misinterpret that because I always think, well, realistic, sometimes you isn't good enough. You got to get your shit together.
Yeah, I agree. There's that. But I think be you in the sense that the way I view that is like you're taking inspiration from different areas. Like you're not going to blindly copy someone else. Like you're going to take a little bit, like Nathan, for us, we've taken bits from everywhere. Like from our biggest inspirations, a bit from Derek Sivers, a bit from Ramit Sethi, a bit from like, Tom Brady, a bit from Michael Jordan. Like we're taking Bruce Lee, bits and pieces from all these role models. And then you couple it up with your experiences and your take on things. And then boom, you create Nathan Martin, Curtis Morgan. Like it's just, that's what you get. So I think relationships should be not a priority whatsoever.
Like I'm telling you, do not stress, man. Do not stress.
No. Yeah, I mean,
you might feel like you're behind.
Well, the way you got to view it is like, I believe anyway, at least till you're like up until you're 20, like late 20s, like you're purely working on yourself.
Yeah.
Like that's like mid 20s.
And you're maturing as well.
25, like by the time you shouldn't even like, your goal is, it's kind of like in like, imagine you're playing an MMO, you're playing WoW. Your priority isn't to get in a guild.
You can't start raiding.
You're not going to get in a good guild until you
have no gear.
Who's going to pick you up?
Yeah.
Like you're useless.
Yeah.
Like you got to get gear first and get leveled up and then you can start getting into a guild,
At the end of the day, you're 19 years old. If you get into a relationship, you'll just be even more broke than you are now.
Yeah, you don't have money. It's more stress. You don't have the time. Your goal is to pursue excellence in whatever that field may be. And find out more about yourself. Now, you might find that person during that time that can support you. I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I'm sure there are relationships out there where people find that person who can support them early on in life. I think it's very unlikely, but for those people, good on them. As long as they are aligned in their way of living and you both support each other, and then
I mean, at 19 years old,
it's
that's
just hard to
that's
find
not
that,
how,
because you don't know who you are. You're still evolving.
That's right.
I would say that between the ages of 18 to 25, there was a different version of Curtis every year.
Yep. Basically,
There's the Curtis 1.0, 2.0, 3. It's like the different iPhones, dude. You wouldn't even recognize the Curtis of...
No, you guys would not.
Nathan has seen the evolution.
Yeah.
I'm a different person every year because I'm always learning and growing. Same as you. We're both evolving. I'd say I changed more rapidly. You kind of knew you. Like, you were very clear on your identity from a young age. Like, you had this North Star. It's like, I want to be this sort of person. Like, I'm not saying like to the T, but like you had a very good intuition of like the type of person you were and what you liked and what you didn't like. For me, I didn't have that North Star like Nathan did, and I had to change and evolve who I was every year. And every year I thought that was the best version of me, but then there was always another version and then another version, and you just never stops. It's like David Goggins, it never ends. It's like the same thing. So it's just not a priority, man. Not a priority.
Yeah. Don't stress at all, man. You heard it here first from the Broken by Concept podcast. How do you get a girlfriend?
That's just the wrong question to ask. That's actually the better way to put it. It's the wrong question to ask.
Is it possible to have a girlfriend whilst being a gamer?
Yeah, no shit it is.
Just ask Curtis.
Of course it is. It just depends, again, your priorities and what's important to you. This is going to come a sacrifice elsewhere, right? It just depends where you want to put your time. But at that age, I don't think that's your priority.
No. All right, moving on here from Rafe. Advice on continuing 3 blocks in the MLA. Hi, Coach Curtis and Nathan. I go by Boogly. My actual name is Rafe. Sounds like safe. Oh, Rafe. So Rafe. And I'm a mid-player hovering around Plat 3 and Plat 2. I ended last season high silver and got to Plat just through grinding games. I've decided to start trying to improve more seriously by taking notes on matchups, doing blocks of 3, and starting to review at least some of my games. My question is, how do you continue at a block of 3 if your first game goes horribly wrong and messes with your mental? Do you stop that 3 block and take an extended break, take a short break, like 5 minutes to mental reset? Do you just go straight into the next game, or is your break/mental reset reviewing that game? My second question is for Curtis.
Well, let's start the first one. I think let's do the first one first.
Yeah.
Well, I'll start with my take, and then you go to your take.
Yep.
For me, I would say, in a perfect world, if I had the time and I didn't have to, I didn't stream my games and I didn't have a community and all that stuff, what I would do is I would do game with like a good, like, getting out of my PC, like walk, like that's what I would really do. Like if I could do that, like I can do that now, and I try to do that, but like I would take an extended break away from my PC for probably at least 3 minutes. Like I'm literally not even at my computer. I'm in another room, walking around, getting water, eating a few nuts, whatever it is, right? Then I come back and then I go into my review, and then I look at obviously the areas of my learning objective, and then I, fill out my notes, or what. I have a thing in the MLA that does that anyway. And then I like review it intensely. And that whole process should ideally take between, it shouldn't take longer than 12 minutes, 13 minutes, like max.
So what's a review?
Like the entire process.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, reviews should be very short.
That's including the walk. That's including the break and then the review.
Yeah.
And look, I feel as though the whole, should I play another, that comes down to, that's a case-by-case basis. There are going to be some very tilting games where, yes, you should end your block.
This is where it comes into controlling your emotions and understanding your emotions.
This is all that emotional regulation, right? And I feel it's case by case. There are some times where I've ended my block at 2 blocks. And I don't do that very often, but I have to. I did that on Saturday. I recognized that I am not in the correct mental state to play this other game, so I stopped. I literally stopped the queue. I said, I thought I was okay, and I reflected, and I wasn't okay. I said, I'm not playing this game. There's going to be other games where you can play 4 because you felt as though 4 games in a block because you felt as though one of them, it was just an open mid at 12 minutes. You didn't get to play the game. You have plenty of energy. You're feeling good. You can play 4. It's a case-by-case basis, man. And this all ties down to emotional regulation. And you got to have that tough conversation with yourself. And you got to do that reflection. And it's only in that reflection you're going to know. Otherwise, you'll end up like me for 2 weeks. up shit creek. Do you have anything to add? Well,
I think that's good. I think I agree. The way that I view it is this: if I've had like some bad games, I know I'm playing bad, and I'm sitting in my chair, I feel like physically I'm just getting pushed down or something. Like especially with my headset, my wireless headset, I literally know that when I take it off, I feel like I'm disconnected from the computer world. Because you're lucky when you leave your desk, you don't have a wireless headset. You can take it off physically. But because I have a wireless headset, I get locked in.
But it's not like that.
Crazy.
The analogy I would use, Nathan, is that I feel as like I got like a string attached to my desk.
Yeah.
Like I got this little pulley system. And so like when I leave my desk, I'm getting fucking reeled back in, and like my mind is still in that chair.
Yeah.
So like sometimes
my mind's still in that chair, but it's not as much. Like at least I'm sort of disconnected. It's like
disconnecting a bit.
I view it as like an electrical field. Like I got an electrical field, and like I'll get out of it. Like let's say like my whole apartment's an electrical field, but it's like the black hole is like the center of like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I feel you.
Yeah.
Look, I would also go to say that like there are some times where I totally resonate with you, Nathan. Like I'm in this weird mindset where I genuinely feel like an addict.
Yeah.
Like I feel tendencies like I am like I feel like
you got to get back that LP. You got to.
Well, it's just my entire physiology. Like I feel shit.
You feel shit.
My entire body.
Yeah.
Like I wasn't aware of this back. Like I probably felt like this for years. Like when I grinded the game. But now that I'm more aware of my physiology, I can feel, like you said, that there's a feeling of like you feel like you're getting pushed down. There's this. You feel tight.
There's like a weight.
You feel sick.
Yeah, you do. You feel sick.
You just don't feel right.
Yeah.
Like, it's that feeling. I hate that feeling, and I always feel like disgusting. I just need to have a cold shower and like get the fuck away from the computer, you know? Like
get outside, get some fresh air.
If you feel that, then you need to get out.
Yeah.
Like, you know.
But sometimes you can play a lot. If you're really confident as well, you're just powering through. It's like, I'm just a beast.
It's just a case by case basis.
Yeah.
You know, it really depends. You got to know when you can and can't perform. But the scary thing is when you think you can perform, you delude yourself, you think you can perform, and that's where addiction comes into play. And, you know, that's where that review process can help. And the 3 blocks really do help. Because the aim of the 3 block, if you really think about it, man, is that the 3 block is preventing you from autopiloting, pressing that play again button, and then going straight into the next game without reflecting. It's a way of forcing reflection in a way.
That's right, yeah.
Let's just let the engine
thinking about your rank overall.
Turn it back on.
You're thinking about the games, how you're going.
Yeah, it's like rather than, you know, it's kind of like driving in the dark. It's like, okay, well, at least we have the lights on. We kind of know where we're going. If you're not doing 3 blocks, you're just driving in the dark. There's no fucking direction. You're just playing. You're just going. And you hit a tree, you're going to hit a pole. We don't know where you're going. That's the way I view it. What was the second part?
He was asking about how do MLA spots open work?
How
often? He's on the wait list, but...
It's about every 4 weeks.
Yeah.
If you've been on the wait list for 4 weeks, DM me on Discord. But usually every 4 weeks.
And then he said, thanks to you guys for being the guiding light for all of us who are on the climb.
No problem, man.
All right, next one here is from Nolan. Title of this email is called Addiction and Rage Queue. Hello, Curtis and Nathan. My name is Nolan, and I'm a silver support playing Leona Bard and Trundle. I'm constantly bouncing from silver 4 to silver 3 and back, and a lot of the reason I keep doing this is because I'm addicted and I just can't learn how to not rage queue and not focus on the LP. I feel like if I didn't do this, I feel that I could be high silver too. What can I do to stop these bad habits and stick to a 3-game block? Thanks for the podcast and doing what you guys do. Keep it up. I'll jump in right here. The way you're framing these ranks is a problem. So you're talking about I'm bouncing from silver 4 to silver 3, and you feel like at max you could be like silver 2. Don't think of it as rank. Think of it as your level of play equals your rank. So like you're just like trying to claw at like improvement. Like you know, you get stuck. Like you get so stuck when you're in that. You know, I feel like at my best I'm silver 2. No, don't think about that at all. I feel like these are the concepts I'm learning. This is what I'm improving on. As I improve on these things, if I know what a great support player looks like, yeah, I'm not going to know everything that's going on, but you could sort of see it's like, okay, the way they move, the way they use their abilities. If I get these down, like, you know, you're going to be climbing way high, like gold, platinum, diamond, you know, once you practice these and know what you're working on and, you know, so I think that there's no really improvement process. I don't think he knows what good players look like. He's just sort of stuck. He's just playing like his own game. Yeah, that's just stuck. Like it's actually the way you're framing this email. It's got nothing to do with your addiction rage cue. I feel like you actually don't know how to improve, and that's causing these addiction and rage cues.
Well, it's kind of like he's not a student of the game.
Yeah, you're not a student of the game at all.
You got to become a student of the game, man, and just be very critical of yourself. Like, keep it even simple, dude. Just look at your deaths.
Yep.
Why are you dying?
Yep.
What are the trends? Look at someone else play that champion. Get specific. What I did? I should have said this at the start of the coaching, the podcast. I did a really interesting thing where I had a VOD of a matchup on one monitor and then the VOD of the exact same matchup on another monitor.
I love that.
And I played them, synced them at the exact same time because I couldn't figure out the matchup.
Yep.
And I learned this matchup, TF into Cassidy, by doing it. And I was able to see specifically what was happening different. Like, why did this one feel really bad and this one was really good? And I was able to really see these small details. You obviously don't need to go to this extreme, but it's the process of at the end of the day, we're still doing the same thing. I'm trying to identify what is different here.
Yeah.
And when you're in silver, the differences should be pretty bloody obvious because you're in silver. And yeah, I agree with you, Nathan. I don't like the way he's framing it. Like, you're going from like the ball pit in a playground to the monkey bars rather than get into the car by going in the car and driving home, dude. You're in a little kiddie playground, dude. Like, you're in the sand pit. Go from the sand pit to the slide. It doesn't matter. You're in silver. So like, frame it in the sense of like, okay, these are really basic concepts that I must be misunderstanding. What are they? And isolate them and start to just be a little bit more conscious of what's going wrong and why it's going wrong. You know, and I feel like that's the biggest thing. When you're in silver, you got to really put it into perspective. Silver is truly the introduction to the game. You are very much a beginner. You know, you're a toddler. And so you need to own that. A toddler, a baby, is very perceptive. They don't think they know everything.
You should be excited. Babies, they get information. They ask questions. They're curious.
They're curious. That's the mindset. You got to be literally a baby. Baby-like. Even though it sounds ridiculous, but it's
childlike.
True. Childlike, yeah.
And yeah, that's why you're angry. And because when you're lost, when you don't have direction, you're going to drag others down. You're going to get angry. You're going to be like, why me? Like, that's what's happening there.
Well, he obviously thinks that he should be getting better than he is.
Yeah, that's right. You know. All right. Next one here is from Jared. The title of this email is called Adrenaline. Hello, do you feel that managing adrenaline is a skill in gaming and also League of Legends? I took a break from all video games for about 2 months and then came back into LoL. I noticed that after my 2 block, I don't have the mental endurance for a third game. I feel nauseous, lightheaded, have trouble thinking, and feel a little jittery. I remember as a child when I first got my gaming system, I would feel nauseous after about 2 hours of continuous play. But I pushed through that and got acclimated to it. Acclimated to it. Have either of you experienced something like this from gaming? Nauseous, lightheaded.
Yeah, I do.
Trouble thinking.
I straight up do. That's what I said earlier on. Sometimes I feel sick, but I do that even when I play well. Like when I play high intensity League of Legends in a 3 block, by the end of the third, if I play like a lot of high intensity League, like 3 block, a really hard 3 block, I do feel actually quite nauseous. I don't feel well. That's why as well, like I want to work out usually straight after my 3 block.
Yep.
I just have pent up adrenaline. And that's why I feel as though some people, remember Carbon used to do the push-ups. Some people, when they feel like they have pent up adrenaline, if you are that type of person, this guy we used to know used to do push-ups in between games and before games and things like that to release some of his adrenaline and get the blood pumping and through his body. So I feel as though, that's quite normal. I would say it's quite normal. Your brain is just, you're very overwhelmed. You're functioning at a very high level. And you will get acclimated to it though. If you consistently do 3 blocks,
that's right.
You'll condition yourself to be able to play 3 block pretty reliably.
Yeah, your brain will be like, these are the sessions that this guy keeps doing. Like, he's telling me that we need to focus. Like, I'm going to start figuring this out.
Yep.
That's what your brain's going to conversation. All right, we'll do one more.
Who's the lucky winner?
James. Title of this email is called Free Wins Are Real. Hey guys, recently I feel I've been climbing at a solid rate. I'm starting to gain a lot of confidence in myself at my current ELO, and I think a big reason is the podcast building such a strong mental. I already play with chat muted, but I still get tilted from teammates sometimes. While this is seldom, AFKs tilt me out of my mind like nothing else. My last 2 blocks, though, I have had a huge realization. It is incredibly hard for me to get mad at teammates anymore. I went to combine 5-1, and one of the wins, I was AFK for 5 minutes plus. Another one of those wins, I was hard camped and dove successfully 3 times on my second roll. There was a 3 level and 60 CS difference before the mid-game started, and somehow my team still dragged my lifeless body to the Nexus. The AFK win really spoke to me, though. I finally got the balls to play my Aurelia, in ranked. I was limit testing against a Lucian and lost an all-in at level 3 due to misclicking Ignite and misclicking my Q. As soon as I respawned, my internet went down. I just needed to reset the modem router. I did not get back in the game until 5 minutes later and was down 6 levels. I got back and found that my team is up in kills, objectives, and CS. All the other laners in jungle were hard winning. I was surprised because from the lens of all my teammates, I rage quit after losing the 1v1. They had no reason at that point to continue trying, yet they did, and we hard stopped the game when I came back. This one game really made me realize that every quote unquote, his words, degenerate you get on your team, you are that same degenerate on the other team. There is no point in tilting because you have no context of anyone else's situation. I think it's really important to know, because remember how we say people don't emphasize the free wins ever?
No.
They always emphasize the guaranteed losses.
Yep.
This is a really important realization,
we look over
James.
them. Everyone looks over them.
Yep.
I'm going to give you a very specific example, something that I noticed in myself. I should have said this in one of my big learnings from my reflection. I had a bad habit that I found in myself, in my reviews, where my ego protection would, when I was during this 2-week period, that it wasn't happening before, but it was happening this 2-week period, where anything that I did that I got away with, luckily, I wouldn't accept that this was bad. Like I would I would say, oh yeah, I did this, well played, whatever. Like just skip over it.
Yeah.
And so I couldn't bring myself to be register this as this was my fault.
Dude, I'm the complete opposite. I'll self-sabotage myself.
I know. That's what I usually do as well. I mean, I wouldn't get to the rank I was at if I didn't do that, right?
That's right, yeah.
Which means I did do it.
So then you
But in that 2-week period, I slipped up.
Never happened to me, dude. That would never happen.
That was a big sign. One of the things I regressed on hardcore that in that 2-week period. That I remember specifically, there was a play where I was doing pretty well, and then the support enemy support comes mid and tries to dive me, and I end up getting a kill. And I remember my initial response when I looked over the VOD the first time was I just looked over and I got the kill, but I didn't actually. You
didn't even know he was coming.
I didn't even know he was coming. It was just luck, right?
Luck,
I could have easily died here.
Yeah.
But then on my second time watching it, after catching myself, I said, "This is actually really bad, Curtis. Why?" I just looked over this as first time. And this is a kind of the example. We look over the things when it's convenient to us. And when it's a painful experience, we just remember those painful experiences. So I feel as though, this happens a lot, and it happened within myself, and I saw it happen, and it's very easy. It's so easy to happen. It just happens instantly. You don't even realize it.
No.
It's only when you do it, look over a second time, you're like, oh shit, this is actually pretty bad. So, I think he's spot on. This just shows, I mean, we just forget all the things that, not even just a win, even just lucky things that happen, right? It can be a win, obviously. We get a free win, but even the things that are lucky. Or those games where you go down 0-3 and your team carries you. You could have lost that game easily. You just got carried. It was just lucky. But you're never going to say you got carried.
No, that's right.
You'll forget that game existed.
That's right.
Or you say you got carried, but then you'll forget about it.
You think you play well. It's I still play. I think I did some good things that game. Yeah. It's I played well in this team fight, which was the easiest team fight to win because your team was so far ahead.
Really fed Trinity a split pushing Tom or some shit. Yeah. Yeah, 100%.
That's why you got to be honest with yourself in reviews.
In a way, it's kind of emotional regulation. It's just self-awareness. Yeah,
I feel like some of my clients they're pretty bad at being honest with themselves in reviews. They'll say things as I played well here, but it's well, did you actually know that this was happening?
No, I think, look, Nathan, and I know, and I'm going to be speaking from my experience. Deep down, they know. Like these people know.
Okay. Yeah.
They really do know if probed, but like their system one response in the moment is
It's like ego protection.
it's like ego
That's what
protection.
you
It's like
said.
if really probed about it and you ask again and ask again, they will tell you.
It's like, okay, I actually didn't know he was there.
They'll
Yeah.
say it, but
Yeah.
like it takes, you got to get it out of them.
get it out
It's
of
like,
them,
you got
yeah.
to beat it out of them. It
Yeah.
just takes,
Get the wood spoon and just start beating them until you tell the truth, to torture them.
you gotta. It's hard. Or some people, when asked, they'll even make other excuses to we've dealt with this in
cover it
dialogue.
up,
They'll go deeper, like dig
Yeah.
themselves a deeper
Deep hole
hole.
of like why they did something.
But this happened, but this, and then it goes to this extreme. And
It does. Then there's a huge arguments and someone leaves the building crying and
Yep,
stuff.
and
Yeah.
then, yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. All right. That's it for Broken My Concept, guys. Our scuffed podcast.
Oh, it's not scuffed by him. It's us. So it's not Bridger. It's us. Like, it's not actually scuffed. It's like
Oh yeah. It's because of us. Yeah, that's right.
It's not his thing.
That's
His thing's
right.
good.
We're
incompetent.
Yeah, we're incompetent. Yeah. So again, thanks to him. Clips channel. We got our Patreon if you want to support the
Book
podcast
club.
and join our book club. And there you go.
Excellent.
See you guys.
Bye-bye.
For episode number 70.